Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, music, pop culture, social media, sports, everything really, depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats, and I am speaking to the band The Blue Stones. I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell us what they do in the band, and we will get into it.
Okay, I'm Tarek, and I play guitar and I sing in the duo that is the Blue Stones.
And my name is Justin, and I play drums in the duo that is the Blue Stones.
Tarek, Justin, welcome to Popternative.
Thanks for having us, man.
It's one of those things where, let's be honest, I mean, aside from you being a duo, you don't have like the four members. I mean, there's a lot of different genres of music these days. A lot of bands like kind of playing around with what they call themselves genre-wise. But let's be honest, the Blue Stones is a rock band. It's rock and roll, guys.
Yeah, sure. That's what you want to take from it. Justin and I talk about this all the time, and it's like, I feel like everybody wants to classify a band so bad that they're like, I need a lane. Like, what lane are these guys in? But really, for us, it's like, hey, if you want to consider us as like a pop band and that makes you like us, then great.
Yeah.
But yes, we do like to rock the fuck out.
Justin, the idea of you playing music for a living or for a career possibly, did that start young for you? Did that start later on in your life? When did that kind of come into play for you specifically?
I mean, like, the desire to do it came early, for sure. I think that happens with a lot of people when they pick up music. I started playing music when I was like 12. And yeah, by that time I was just like, this would be so cool to do, like, as a living. The reality that was a possibility started growing more and more the more shows that we played and the more that we toured, and then it dipped down for a little bit, and then really in like 2017 I'd say it kind of like came up to like, wow, this is a real possibility, and we're really on a track that can make it happen.
Absolutely. And Tarek, I did mention it as well. It's a duo. It's two people. People look at a band. I mean, that has been like, there are other bands that do that as well. Like, the Black Keys, Royal Blood. When did you kind of know that you didn't need more members? Like, was it kind of a moment where you were making songs with Justin, you were just like, hey, we're good? Like when did that kind of sink in that like a duo was possible?
I think it was probably after the first, 2 to 3 shows that we had played, where after the show was done, people would come up to us and be like, wow, like, I can't believe all that sound is coming from you guys. It's just you two up there. And
Yep.
Nobody had mentioned the lack of bass. Nobody had mentioned the lack of another guitar or a keyboard. So to us, we were just kind of like, okay, well, this is working. Let's just keep going and we'll figure out the bass situation later.
Yep.
And then we just never really had to. So I'd say, yeah, after the like second, third show, we kind of hit our stride, I thought, as far as like full sound.
Absolutely. This is a question for both of you. I just kind of want to start with Justin. This is a segment I do on my show. It's called Name 3. This is kind of an opportunity for the bands that come on my show, for my listeners that have not listened to you guys before. They have an opportunity to kind of get to know like some of your songs. So what I do is I ask members to kind of give me 3 songs, 3 specific songs. And Justin, the ones that you give could be the same as Tarek. They could be different, but I want you guys both to name me 3 Blue Stone songs. I want you to name me an upbeat, up-tempo Blue Stone song. I want you to name me a heartfelt, important Blue Stone song, like a song that holds close to your heart. And then I want a trendy, new Blue Stone song. So it's whether it's a song that's really making heavy rotation on Spotify playlists, whether it's something that you put out like your newest single. So I want up-tempo, heartfelt, trendy. This is Name 3 with the Blue Stones. Justin, go.
Wow. Okay. Can I talk about unreleased music?
If you want to.
Okay. This is because I mean, like, that's the nice thing about podcasts is that someone might be listening to this 3 years from now. I have no idea. So okay, the up tempo The up-tempo song would have to be, honestly, right now is kind of Let It Ride. That's like the more like up-tempo, upbeat, fun, kind of fun in the sun song. That's what we wrote it as, basically, which is a good one. I'm gonna say the heartfelt song is, to me, the one that really strikes at an emotional chord. It's an unreleased song. We've been playing it live at our shows, though, for the last little bit, so it's not that unreleased. You can probably find it somewhere on the internet. It's called Oceans, and that's off of our upcoming LP, which the date is TBD right now. Thanks, Corona. And then the trendy song, I guess. I mean, I think for Careless, with the way that we approached that one was like, here's a style of music that like is certainly very popular right now outside of what we're doing. But it's a song that we like, and so we're just gonna write it. Like I think sometimes shying away from trends just because they're trends is the wrong move. As long as you're not writing a song because you think it's trendy, if you're writing a song because you think it's a good song, then it would actually be more of a sellout move to not release it because you don't think it fits your genre or whatever. So that's my trendy song.
All right, Tarek, you're up.
Okay, upbeat song. I probably go with off the debut, The Hard Part. That's kind of always been our stamp of like what an upbeat song for us would be like. The was the kind of like the moody sort of emotional song. I would actually take Justin's last one. I'd say Careless for that one. Nice. Just because for me kind of strikes like a personal chord. And then finally the trendy song, we were just discussing it. I would definitely have to say Shaking Off the Rust. I think it kind of strikes most audiences pretty well. And that seems to be what's sort of carrying the flag for us right now. And it's a nice representation of what we sound like right now. And I think I'd have to go with that one.
And it's a good segue to what I want to talk about now, a platform that, of course, has done wonders for the Bluestones, of course, Spotify. And I'm looking at it right now, and 682,000 monthly listeners. Like, isn't that crazy when you hear that amount of people on a monthly basis, Justin, are listening to your songs? That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts to think that it's like almost 3 times the size of like our hometown, right?
Yeah, true.
Which, and that's happening around the world. It's really cool. I think like it, in a way, it's kind of interesting because it doesn't really tell you like how many people are necessarily engaging with the music. I mean, inevitably a lot of that is coming from like playlists and stuff, not to like down talk any of that, because it's crazy to think that we, started playing shows at a venue that was like 65 capacity in our hometown. And it took us a couple years to get to the point, or maybe not a couple years, but like at least a year to get to the point where we could sell that thing out fairly consistently. That's only 65 people, right? So you have like, however, I can't even, what's the math on that? It's like 10,000 times as many people listening to you on a monthly basis. It's kind of nuts. And we've always been proponents of Spotify, saying that like it's just as easy for you to go and listen to Drake as it is to listen to the kid who's making music in his basement like 4 doors down. It's the same cost. There's no barrier to you finding that person. And then it's just kind of like an equalizer,
Absolutely. Well, I could be honest. I'm going to be honest with you, Tarek. Like, I discovered the Bluestones on Spotify. Like, guilty.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I found you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was it like a playlist, or was it kind of similar?
It was, I have friends that are in a band, shout out to Stuck on Planet Earth from Vaughan, Ontario. It came up on, you listen to one of their songs, and then it does the radio play, and then it plays other songs, and Shaking Out the Black Holes came up, and that was like the first song that I heard. But then I saw like Let It Ride and others, they're all on playlists. Like, you guys are doing really well in the playlist rotation for Spotify right now.
That's huge too, you know, especially for any band really, because they curate their official playlists, and a lot of people listen to their official playlists. So it's definitely been a huge benefit to us, and we're very thankful for that.
It is crazy. When did you kind of? So this is a question for both of you. We'll start Tarek. When did you kind of like? When did you realize? Was it like a show you played, or was it reception on a song where this might have happened early on, because I feel like this happens a lot early on in bands' careers. But when did you notice like that this was something, like there was something special with the band, like this was something that you could make out of it, and you can kind of tour and record music? Like when did you know? Was there a moment or a story revolving around that?
One of the earliest moments that I can remember that kind of motivated me, and I imagine motivated Justin, because he said it to both of us, but we were playing at a venue in our hometown called Fog Lounge in Windsor, Ontario. And Tom, who is the owner of that place, this was after the first show that we played at Fog. And I remember we finished our set, and we look over to this guy, and he's just kind of like bewildered, and he's just like looking at us, and he comes over and he's got this very sort of characteristic tone to him, but he's basically like, wow, you know, like, guys, I had no idea you even existed in the city. Like, how come you haven't booked with me before? This and that. He kept talking to us, and he basically was like really just pumping our ego at that point. But
where have you been?
Yeah, exactly. And there was so much sincerity to it that, like, just listening to him talk about it, I was like looking at Justin, I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I guess there's something here, because this guy who owns the venue that at the time we thought was absolutely incredible, it still is, but we were just so like grateful that this guy was so happy about the performance we just put on. So I think that moment for me was like, okay, that we should keep doing this then.
Absolutely. Justin, do you have kind of something to add on that, or another kind of story? Put you on the spot. I mean, that's a really good one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, there were other moments for sure in our hometown that were kind of cool, like early on. If we're going for like something that's, well, you know what, I won't take it to the early days. One thing that happened just recently, when we got nominated for a JUNO award, that was a big like wake up call that now, you know, you're doing this on a national scale.
I was pumped. I was like, well, that's that obviously. I'm just saying, like, I saw that, I was like, oh man, I know this band. Like, I listen to them all the time. Like that.
Sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah, man, and it was that was awesome. You know, validation. Didn't end up like taking home the award, but it honestly didn't matter, because just to get the nomination puts you in that national category now, and this is now a national act, and that was like, okay, just another kind of milestone that we can look at and appreciate, and just keep on trucking and make this thing bigger than we ever imagined, right?
So I want to get a little philosophical and a little deep on a thought / question, and I want to see if you guys hear what I'm saying about what I'm about to say. So, okay. So let's be honest, and I've like, music is very important to a lot of people. Music is therapy in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I went through a lot of tough times in high school, and, you know, I put on bands like Green Day and Sum 41, and boom, you know what I mean? Everything was fine. You know what I mean? I had that escape. It's an escape. And I feel like I used to be a concert promoter and everything, and I'm with bands and everything, and I've noticed kind of like, you always have, you know, bands that have the egos that don't have that opportunity to check it at the door, and the you know, with sound checks and everything. But I've noticed kind of like a change in like the tone and tune of like a lot of bands that like these days, where they're just kind of like doing their thing, they're doing their craft, and, you know, they're playing music and they're doing it like they love it. Because I'm realizing that I think a lot of bands like the Blue Stones, because that's a lot of people listen to you on a monthly basis, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are using the Blue Stones to help them through some tough times. You know what I mean? I'm wondering if there's a kind of a point where like musicians were just like, let's not be cocky, let's not be jerks. Like, we're helping a lot of people. People love us, and we're doing something cool. Do you know what I mean by that a little bit?
Yeah.
Social media happened, man.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah. I think it's definitely that. I mean, like the whole era of like this mysterious sort of untouchable rock star.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of washing away now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you have a couple out there. Like, I mean, I don't really know how this guy is as a person. I'm sure he's very nice, but I feel like Gary Clark Jr. is still kind of that like entity, you know.
Yeah.
But for a lot of new bands now, especially up and coming rock and roll bands, it's social media has changed everything. Like, we can hop on a live stream and you see me in my basement like playing music for you, you know. It's just like you have so much interaction with your fans now through those platforms, through something like Patreon, which we just started and we kind of love. But it's just, yeah, I think it's that connection, the ability to strike that connection so closely is getting rid of the whole idea of like, oh, we can't let fans into our lives, or we can't let fans know what we're really like. Actually, I feel like if you do the opposite, you're at a disadvantage because now people are like, well, I just don't really feel like I connect with this band, so why should I care?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Because there's so many bands out there.
But Justin, do you kind of agree? Like you said, social media, but like, do you know what I'm coming from too? Where like, I think bands are also realizing like what we're doing it to make a living. We're doing it because we love to do it. But what we're doing is actually like making a difference in like tough times. Like, I feel like that's a big one as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like there's a number of things that come to it. So the social media is one. Like, you just, if you want to connect to someone, you have to be yourself. And like, now social media, we're on the same level. And like, if you're a dick, someone's going to put you on blast. But also like, you feel like because you can relate directly to people, you're seeing them more as like a person on the street and not someone that's like below you. So you're showing them respect. But there's also like, it's no secret that there's a lot less money in the music industry for artists nowadays. And so I think that a lot of artists have to like dig deep and figure out there's more reasons why they're doing this besides just making a shit ton of cash. And like, if you don't have appreciation for why people like your music, then you're probably not going to stick in this very long. If anyone is in it for the money these days, like, you're just going to get super frustrated and you're not going to get anywhere. So what you're left with are a lot of artists who are like just very grateful for the audience that they have. And there's a lot more gratitude these days, I think.
I'm glad you understood the gist of where I was going with that then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
no,
you're right. You sniffed it out. Yeah.
One funny thing that I was watching Joe Rogan, and he had Rob Lowe on, and Rob Lowe was like, he's like, why even be famous anymore? He's like, you can't do anything. You know what I mean? But like, think about him back in like the 80s. Was like a very attractive guy, like had a ton of money and like was doing a lot of cool movies in Hollywood. Like, the heinous shit that they probably got up to, you cannot do anymore, right? Because like social media will find you out right away.
It's funny because I always ask kind of like a misconception. Like, one of my hallmark questions that I sometimes ask is like, I want kind of behind the scenes of like, because I interview a lot of people in a lot of big Netflix shows, and I want to say like, what are kind of the misconceptions like the entertainment industry, and then they share some, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we're not making as much money as people think, like the obvious ones, you know. But I was like, I interviewed Quentin Aaron, who was in like The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, which was like an Academy Award winning movie, right? He played Michael Orr.
Great movie.
And he was literally like, people think just because you're famous, you're rich. And he's like, because he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. He's like, when I did that movie, he's like, I was on like the biggest TV show, like the biggest like talk shows. I was on the biggest platforms. I was like doing the biggest things. But then he's like, then, you know, you look at the bank account and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, he's like, famous could be a lot of things, but famous is not guaranteed wealth, because it's like, fame is like being the popular kid at school type thing. So I definitely find that. Another thing too that really bothers me is like, you know, you see it a lot like pro wrestling as well, where like a new wrestler shows up and it's like, oh man, it's like, this guy is on the WWE now. He must have just started wrestling now. Like, they don't realize they've been doing it for like 15 years, like the independents, right? Kind of like music, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is a big thing.
That's a big one. But guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks for having us, man. It was cool.
Yeah, so plug away. I mean, they can follow the band on social media, and they could basically listen to the Bluestones now wherever they basically listen to music, right? Like, that's easy, right? Like, where can you listen to it? Anywhere, basically.
That easy.
Yeah, so we did just release like an EP. We did this session, this live session that we released on YouTube. It's called Live on Display. The whole idea for that was like we were in the middle of a tour when the pandemic lockdown hit, and so we had to like get off the road. We saw all these people doing like live streams and stuff, and we just felt like that wasn't enough to sort of like represent what we want to do and the emotion that we want to transmit when we're playing live. So we shot this video, released it. We put all of the live versions of on one side of vinyl, and then all of the studio versions on another side. It's called Live on Display. It's available now, YouTube, on our shop. You can order the vinyl, all that fun stuff. So
amazing. That's awesome. Well, seriously, Tarek, Justin, thank you guys so much. And for my listeners out there, please listen to the Blue Stones. You will not be disappointed. It's some good music. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is JUNO nominated band The Blue Stones and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.